Hey guys, it's David.
And I'm Guy.
And you're watching Kafe with David and Guy.
It's so good to be back after a long pause.
It's been a bit of a hiatus, right?
Yeah, so I think it was a week and a half ago, we kind of did the very first IGTV kind of, we're going to come back announcement that we did. But we are really happy to be back.
It's been a long time. I mean, I remember being in Barbados. We were still living in Barbados when we ended season 1
of our podcast.
Right. Cafe with David and Guy, and we decided to bring it back, but video style. So either if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or IGTV, we're so thankful that you're joining us.
Definitely.
What's it been like this whole season of transition?
Well,
I feel like it's been transition layered over transition and layered again and again.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I grew a human. Right. For those of you who know me.
Which is no small feat, right?
No small feat. Pretty amazing what the human body can do.
Yeah.
But we took a break just because things got really crazy and busy. So I just felt like right now is a really good time to kind of bring it back, although we're still in a season of transition and things are super weird with quarantine and COVID and COVID-19 and all of that.
I think there needs to be a new word for limbo because that's...
you're kind of...
like...
I feel like we're in a bit of a limbo
We always say that,
season.
or we always used to say that. And new normal doesn't suffice either.
But that's always the lingo.
Right.
This is our new normal.
And no, you add COVID to the mix, this goes beyond new normal.
Definitely. So with that, we also started doing a really cool, well, we think it's cool at least. We've enjoyed it. The Instabook that we started doing. So every month we're going to actually be publishing on Dabla Cafe, of course, a new Instabook featuring either work that we've written ourselves or other creatives, performers, writers. Right. And so this past week, we released an Instabook titled It Was the Spring of Hope, which I borrowed from Charles Dickens because, because A Tale of Two Cities is one of my favorite books.
The past tense.
Right, hence past tense. It was the spring of hope. Right. And I know that oftentimes people hear, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, and we can continue with that. But I felt that it was really fitting to talk about the spring of hope or the winter of despair, which I think, depending on what you're experiencing right now, it depends which one.
I heard someone so eloquently say recently, in Spanish no less, that time right now feels like a piece of gum, chewing gum, that you've chewed on for a while and you've taken it out of your mouth and you've pulled it apart. That's what time feels like right now, right?
Now, I'm going to have to ask you to say it in Spanish.
I don't know if I'd be able to actually say it in Spanish.
You're kidding.
Yeah, because you said it so well. And I'm going to,
Wow, I put you on the spot and you were like, you passed. Yeah. That's cool.
Okay.
Well, he does speak Spanish.
Un chicle masticado y the rest of it is just... It's there.
Okay, so he is actually a fluent Spanish speaker, native.
Right.
But that's really funny.
I am, right?
He's never once ever said that he didn't know how to translate something into Spanish. So I'm actually I'm happy for this moment of humility, freely given.
It's okay.
But anyway, with our Instabook, we were talking about hope, and there's a line that I wrote because I remember living in Barbados. I remember living in the Eastern Caribbean, and it was during hurricane season. So you have Hurricane Irma happening, Hurricane Maria. It was just a mess. Right. But in that moment,
I almost never saw you because you were away.
That's true. I was working all the time. Right. Which happens at times. We are actually a diplomatic family, so I'm a full-time diplomat. That's my full-time job. I don't like to say 9 to 5 because, quite frankly, if you're a diplomat, depending on where you're posted, 9 to 5 does not exist.
Similar to an entrepreneur, 9 to 5 doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's not really.
I think that's why we get along so well. We understand.
We're both very intense people
in
different ways, but we're very intense. So yeah, when we were in the Eastern Caribbean, I'd see the palm trees, like right in the middle of the hurricane, just like going to and fro, going back and forth. But there was a grace. Like just they moved with like the sense, they bend with the wind, and they didn't snap or break. And as I was writing the mini article or the Insta book, depending on how you prefer to call it, I thought of those palm trees and how majestic they were and how they were able to really kind of move with the wind. And in the same way, I thought, well, that's kind of what I want to be like. That's what I want to emulate in my life. That, even during challenging times, I'd be able to bend back and forth, which is to me really an image of resilience. Because even though we're bending back and forth, we're not snapping.
Right.
And so we wanted to unpack a little bit.
If we're snapping, we're going to snap back.
Right.
Right.
Which is actually, you remember what I read?
Come on.
Love it.
But if you don't have Instagram, if you're not there, feel free to go to our website, davilakafe.com/blog. You'll be able to find the Insta book there as well in written form.
So
so today, what are we talking about?
We're talking about resilience. I mean, I feel like we already started talking about it without naming it, but
to speak more directly to resilience and what that is, it's a loaded word. It's also, before the coronavirus, it was oftentimes, at least especially in the diplomatic world in our sphere, it's used all the time.
Right.
It's thrown out there. And even coffee, I've noticed in the coffee industry, people do use resilience more often than not to describe just being strong and coming back.
Right.
But
especially when you think about the coffee farmers.
Exactly. When you think about farmers, when you think about crops, when you think about if it was a good season or a poor season, if there was rain, there was wind, right? All those things. And our farmers have to be resilient on the ground.
Right.
And within one of the lectures that I was sitting at, a woman that was speaking, she said, we use this word resilience and we praise it, but really that's something that we only need to be when we have to be that, right? Only, there has to be a need to cause us to be resilient. It's not going to be our natural tendency to say, oh, let me go be resilient today, for the sake of it. And
unless if you're just really awesome and amazing, which we know some very awesome and amazing people, so perhaps that's...
And we might call that ambition at that point, right? So
if you're ambitious, you're resilient. I'll take that argument. Yeah, I think that people who are ambitious tend to be resilient if you're going to keep on going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it reminded me that this is not something that's innate. It might be for some, but not everybody. So if you're finding yourself in a season where this is really hard and you've never experienced anything like this, by all means, that's your right. You can totally feel that way. You can own up to those emotions. And we're here to travel through this journey together. We love the community that we get to be a part of and build is one that is resilient, but it's not being resilient for the sake of being resilient, but growing together in the process.
And, on that note, really, I think when we speak about resilience, you have to ask yourself, well, what exactly do you even mean by that? Like, what does that look like, practically speaking? I think a lot of different professionals might define it differently for themselves. But I would say that part of resilience is definitely community. What David just mentioned, you have to be really smart and kind of intentional about building community for yourself. And that may look right now like virtual community. And there's just nothing wrong with that. I think something that sometimes, we feel like, oh, well, if I'm not having coffee right in front of you or with you in person, it's less of an experience. And I found that to not be the case. Obviously, it'd be great to be able to be in person with the ones that you care for and the ones that you're building community with. But I think part of resilience is being able to create workarounds, seeing every crisis as an opportunity, making it an opportunity for yourself to actually build something that's going to outlast this season, even that's going to outlast the challenges that you're personally experiencing.
That's good. And when I think about resilience, I'm reminded that the pressures that we face, the challenges we face, they're going to cause us to persevere. We need to endure this season, and we're going to come out stronger. And as we're persevering, as we're moving forward, it's going to develop character in us, like that palm tree. The character that palm tree has is to go back to its place, right?
Sure, that is
as the
character.
Wind blows.
It bends.
Exactly. And that's going to produce hope. So in the process, we're meeting challenges. It's going to develop perseverance. We're going to build character through it. Our character will be strengthened in the process.
Totally.
And we're going to come out strong, full of hope, knowing that, hey, if I got it through this in the past or any other pressure or challenge that I've faced, sure enough, I'm going to be able to get through this one as well.
That's so good. I totally agree. And I think that there's only one qualifier that I'd add to what David just said. It's really if you allow it to build character in you, if you allow yourself. Because I found that sometimes for me, it's hard. Like sometimes I don't feel like going through the hard things in life because it's hard.
Who does?
Exactly. So I think it's and perhaps this is the part where kindness is also a part of resilience. And I think that that's being kind to yourself and truly creating boundaries that are healthy, that are going to be emotionally healthy for you, that are going to be physically healthy. So taking steps to, even if it means walking outside, even if it means, calling whoever it is that adds some joy to your life. Being resilient is most certainly allowing yourself to go through a process where you're not just snapping, but that you are bending and that you're building perseverance and character along the way. But we can't really do that if we're not kind to ourselves and kind to the ones who are around us. You know? And so I would definitely emphasize that for sure. Just being kind and being aware in that way.
That's good.
Yeah. What else would you say in terms of resilience?
Resilience.
Peace in resilience.
Peace and resilience.
Yeah.
Any other takeaways that
you're being
have?
like such a millionaire. Let me check my phone.
Another one is to be honest about the season that you're in.
That's big.
Right? Be honest with how you're feeling. And understand, okay, what am I going to leave this season having accomplished?
Right.
This season's going to pass. It's going to end at some point, and we're all held accountable, if not to ourselves, right? What did I do with the season that I was in? This extra time that I had, or sometimes a lag thereof, because this new season requires a different level of attention for all of us.
Right. Zoom has become like the newest thing. Everybody's on Zoom all the time.
Right. So just be honest with yourself in this season and make sure that you are taking those steps to build that resilience.
And I think, even to piggyback off what David is saying in terms of, what are you going to come out of the season with? What are you going to produce? I think sometimes in our culture we think that being intentional means that you always have to create a product, where in my mind at least, and I think in our home, intentionality and being productive is not just a physical product. It's us.
Right.
It's how are we taking the time to grow as individuals.
That's
so,
good.
Maybe the season means that what you actually need to produce is greater peace in your life. It's not this new book that you just wrote. It's not 5 new articles or 10 new articles, or it's not a new business. Maybe it's not that. But perhaps what was missing before this all started was a sense of peace, was a sense of groundedness. And so I just want to really kind of emphasize that when we're talking about honesty with yourself and honesty, emotional honesty is really kind of defining success for yourself and not allowing our outside culture, our external culture to constantly tell you what success is. Because it's going to look different for different people in this season. For some people, it will be writing 5 books or 3 books or 10 articles.
Right.
But for other people, it's going to be, because I was intentional.
Routine,
right. Because I was intentional, I created a really good simple routine for myself that led to greater peace in my life. And so I don't want to underlook the value of sometimes just being.
Right.
We don't always have to be doing.
Right.
Sometimes the peace and the success, the reward is actually a greater amount of peace.
That's really good. So that's what we have today as far as our takeaways go. Thank you so much for watching and joining us.
For sure.
You mean so much to us. If you did like this podcast, feel free to like, share, subscribe to our podcast, and leave us a comment. We'd love to answer those questions or just continue to build community with you. So
for sure.
We'll see you soon.
Wait 1 second.
Oh,
what are we sipping on?
What are we sipping on?
This is tradition, y'all.
This is tradition.
What are you sipping on?
I'm sipping on some Savi Espresso today.
Oh, nice. Oh, then that means that I too am sipping on the Savi Espresso. It's really good.
It is.
It has a nice kick to it. And
it's fitting that we're sipping Savi,
we're not going to even mention it.
All right.
This is like the marriage part where I'm like, not for public.
Right.
Okay, well, if you do know, go ahead. You might as well tell them. Tell them.
That we ended our last podcast preparing for Savi's arrival.
Right.
So now
and that's our son's nickname. So we named our coffee, one of our roasts after him.
Right.
So anyway, cheers.
So cheers. See you guys soon.
Thank you for joining us.
Take care.
Ciao.